Welcome to the Business of Doing Science podcast, brought to you by Bagamian Scientific Consulting. On this podcast, we discuss different aspects of pursuing science-related careers and just how science is actually done beyond the bench. So stay tuned to find out more. Welcome to the Business of Doing Science. I'm Karun Bagamian, joined by my co-hosts Lindsay Leitner and Heidi Bolduc. On this episode, we welcome Tara Sabo-Atwood to tell us about the unique evolution of her inspiring academic career. Tara, we would love to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So I'll start with what my current position is and then maybe back up and then sort of tell you how I got there, if that sounds okay.
Good. That sounds
great.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. My current position, I wear several hats. First and foremost, I'm a mother and that counts. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, I am a researcher, so an environmental toxicologist by training, and I run a research operation here at University of Florida. I'm a professor in the Department of Environmental and Global Health, which is situated in the College of Public Health and Health Professions. But in addition to being a researcher, I also chair the Department of Environmental and Global Health. So I manage 17 faculty and 60 students and several staff. And also I am an associate dean of faculty development, cultural affairs, and wellness programs. It's a mouthful. So I never say all these positions together because one of a sentence. That's what I'm doing. So I'm doing research, which is what I was trained to do, but I'm also doing a lot of leadership now, which I wasn't trained to do, but I sort of got there. Let me back up and I'll tell you how I got there a little bit.
That would be great.
I started out in middle school and high school, always being interested in science. So I always knew I wanted to do something in that space, science and engineering, really. And I had a really profound experience that changed the direction of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to fly fighter jets for the Navy.
Cool.
And actually at the time, so this was in, I'm going to date myself. This was in the 80s when they actually didn't let women fly in combat. They do now, but that's fairly recent. And so I was pretty struck by the fact that I had no idea that was a thing. What do you mean they don't let women fly in combat? And I really decided, no way. I'm not doing that. And it really pointed me in another direction, which was more towards the biological sciences. I don't know if it really had to do with Top Gun was a big movie at the time, which I don't really enjoy, but influenced by that. But it is something that I held on to. And it was one of the first times in my career that I thought, oh, why are there these differences for women? What's up with that? And I hadn't experienced that much up until that point. And that'll come back later. So I got interested in the biological sciences, and long story short, I ended up going into science and research after a couple stints in genetics and some other spaces. I really spent a while just building a research program as people do as an assistant professor, first a postdoc and then an assistant professor. So I had some transition points along the way in the subject area that I studied. I was trained during my PhD work as an aquatic toxicologist. I actually studied fish as a model species. I studied largemouth bass and tried to understand the effects of pollutant on them. And so I worked for one of the most amazing people, Nancy Denslow, who I still work with. Her lab's next door to me. It's amazing. And so I was trained by her, but then I went and did a postdoc in respiratory toxicology, which is totally different. Fish don't have lungs. So that was really new
Totally.
for me. And really decided to do something a little bit uncomfortable, which was completely do something and study something different, which I also think was really important in the way that my career progressed. I will say at the time I had a postdoc mentor that was also an amazing woman and was really lucky and fortunate to have two outstanding women mentors, which I think really helped me with professional development along the way. Then I did the thing. I set up the big research program, got funding, worked on a lot of different projects. I still work in both the fish world and the respiratory tox world. But then I really branched out into doing other things. And I'll give you an example of that. And one is looking at the relationship between green space and health outcomes. So it's sort of an extension of environmental health, but new area. So, taking chances on new things that I really thought I had a passion for. And so I'm doing that as well. Then in addition to that, I got interested in leadership. And one of the events that really helped me with that was that I attended something called ELAM. So I got to give a shout out to ELAM, which is the Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine, very immersive leadership program for women in medicine and science. And that is a program out of Drexel University. You have to apply, you have to get into it. It costs a lot of money to go to it. My dean was very supportive of this, but it essentially is a year-long program where you have lots of homework. So I was back in school where you learn about leadership. You learn how to be a good leader. So it was a big professional development moment for me to decide to do that program and put all the effort into it. But what came out of that, I'm a chair and I'm a dean. I think that helped me to move into those positions. In my role as chair, it's really more about how to help other people be successful. So the focus shifts a little bit from how do you make yourself successful to how to help other people be successful, which I found is amazingly gratifying when you can help people do that. And then with the associate dean level position, it's similar, but it's really at a larger level. So more big visionary that you get people to help you execute really. And in that space, I've really been focusing heavily on wellness for the entire college because quite frankly, no one else was doing it. So why not the environmental toxicologist? And
And while she's doing all these things, I don't know if she's going to bring this up. I don't know if you still do it, but she served on the EPA Science Advisory Board. Also, at the beginning of the pandemic, she helped set up a COVID testing lab, which is not what she trained in. She has an interest in infectious disease, but that has gone even broader, I think, right? You guys are testing wastewater for COVID, and there's a lot of applications that's coming out of that project too.
It's about opportunity and grabbing it. That happened when the pandemic started. They said, hey, Sabo Atwood, could you stand up a COVID testing lab in 10 days? And I said, I don't know, but I think so.
Why not?
I think what helped give me confidence in that was the leadership skills that I already developed to bring a team together. So I wasn't doing all the work. No way. I had 30 volunteers, students, staff, faculty.
Phenomenal.
That just worked round the clock, pretty much. I mean, we didn't even have a standard operating procedure, SOP. We had nothing written. So we went from basically doling out duties to say, how can we do this? And everybody came together and there was blood, sweat, and tears during that. We were here 16, 18 hours a day. I was going home. I was stripping down and deconning in my garage.
Yeah.
But you just do it because it's public health service, number one. And that's what we do in public health. And then already having a really great network and I think respect in a leadership position that I asked people and they said yes without hesitation. It was amazing. And we provided all of the initial testing at UF before they got their big UF system up and running, which took a little bit longer. So we were sort of the stopgap during that really early phase where we were just testing all the swabs. And then we also did a lot of testing just in North Florida. We did testing for the homeless shelters. We did testing for other communities and we were just running studies to just where it was needed. We did that for a while, but the opportunity piece came in because we started doing what's really called wastewater-based epidemiology. And so what that means is measuring stuff in wastewater, which we're really good at, but then working with the public health professionals, the people at Department of Health, epidemiologists to say, okay, we can give you information about what's in the water as a measure of community health. And here's the information and we can do it rapidly so you can actually do some kind of intervention. And in the case of SARS, it was like, okay, we've set this up on campus. We did 28 sites. We knew which dorms had positive people in it. We told them to go get tested, which was the public health response. So we actually tested SARS and wastewater on campus every day for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
This isn't just me. This is a team of people. But that's now since branched out as well. And we're looking at illicit drugs, opioids, and wastewater of community health in several cities across the nation. They ship us wastewater every week, and we can actually do rapid detection of things like fentanyl and opioids that
Wow.
takes health data related to that. Say fentanyl overdoses takes months to get that data. We can do it in 2 days. So the idea is we provide rapid surveillance without having to talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Pretty cool. It's really something that we started doing, and then you're like, this is pretty neat. How can we evolve it? We now have NIH funding to do it, the illicit drug work.
Oh, that is so cool. The
Yeah.
findings that'll come out of that,
Yeah.
Will be really interesting.
super
Yeah.
cool.
But I think the wellness piece, if you want me to talk about that for a minute, that was more thoughtful. That was a sort of example of an opportunity, and it evolves and you take a chance to do it. The wellness piece was a more thoughtful piece that was still chancy. Is chancy a word? Chancy. Just because I am an environmental toxicologist, and wellness is usually associated with people that do counseling and social work and things like that. But I think what's interesting sometimes is to not dismiss how your expertise might fit into a problem. And so in my case, I thought, well, nobody's doing wellness. I'm not a counselor. I'm not trained in that kind of space. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not all these things to think about with wellness, but I have something to bring that maybe is a little bit different than I can add. So I'm not trying to do all wellness, but I did a lot of work on small things that people can do during the day that make a difference in their overall wellness that lead to things like better productivity, better culture in the workplace. And so when I thought long and hard about it, I decided to launch a initiative called Promoting Happy, Healthy People, which actually is the acronym for our college, PHHP. And under this umbrella, there's several initiatives, but one I'm really proud of is Wellness Workdays. And so this was a incentive-based program that we would run for several weeks at a time, where people would sign up and they would have to complete these really small activities throughout the month, like eating with a friend, don't eat alone, or turn your meeting into a walking meeting, or go outside, put your foot on the earth. It's called grounding for 2 minutes. Really easy things to do, not disruptive to your day.
Yeah.
It worked. And because I'm a researcher, I had to collect data when we were doing this as well. And it was really fascinating to see which things people would do, which things people thought made it different. And then had several stories on it. It got picked up in some magazines and stuff. And the cool thing is people are still doing it. So I would run the program for a month or two, but then when it stopped, people were still doing it. Bringing something different to the table, even though it's not the traditional type of training that people expect. And so I do think it's important in people's career to think that way. Just because I'm not classically trained in psychology doesn't mean I can't contribute to wellness. And it's hard to think that way sometimes. You're busy and doing your thing, but I've learned part of my work life prioritization is to think through these things.
Yeah.
It's creativity. You're
Yeah.
very creative.
But putting your creativity into action. I think there's a lot of really creative people and they get maybe stuck on how do you transition to action. I had to do a lot of convincing. I had to come up with a plan and go to my dean, and I needed resources and I need permission. It evolved into an associate dean position, essentially.
I think it's like a combination of persistence, passion, and confidence, right? To make that thing a reality, because you have to really care about it. Tara cared about this project quite a bit, and, which is clear. This kind of touches upon one of the questions we had for you, which is, what were some of your career highlights or the favorite things that you've gotten to do so far?
The wellness for sure. And I think what I'm proud of with that is that I have a passion for that, turning your passion into reality. Sometimes you have to do things with your job that you're not so passionate about, and it's a little harder to do it. So if you could turn your job into something you're super passionate about, it's sure a lot easier to do it, right? And I also thought it was really important, and I thought it was a space where no one else was doing it, so I would do it. But I think other events or transitions was going to Elium, certainly, because that was a big decision, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything relating to professional development. Have been really rewarding activities that I've done. And I think a lot of people think I don't have time for that or I shouldn't do that. I think professional development is always key to evolving yourself. That's sort of where the wellness started from. It forced me to start thinking about what I wanted to do.
Seems like that was the turning point, really, like of just garnering all those skills and putting everything together and figuring out how you were going to take that next step.
Yeah. And then I think too, some of you on this call know, but I became the chair of the department, not because there was a chair job and I applied for it, but because the former chair left and I agreed to do it. And then I had to decide, do I really want to do it? I hadn't had a thought process too much because I didn't go through the typical channels where I'm ready to be a chair and apply. So then I had to really think hard about whether I was going to do this. And so doing the professional development activities related to leadership helped me in that space to decide I'm going to stay on as chair longer. I'm going to go for associate dean. I'm going to try to move forward in these leadership positions. I always think it can be small too. Sometimes I think people think professional development needs to be a big framework you engage in. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think it even needs to be that structured. It's just opening your mind to other things that might help direct you to where you really want to get to. Those things are important as well. And then again, looping back to the gratification of seeing others succeed, I really enjoy that. And so when I started being able to do that, when I started graduating students and they're out being successful, I realized how much I like that. And as I said, I can do that at the faculty level, at the college level. Realizing that for me pushed me more towards higher leadership as well. And I still love that. And I still do that. And I still have students and I still love working with them.
Yeah, I think one of the big take home messages from what you said is like taking that time to invest in things that you're maybe think, oh, it's not that important or something like that. But a lot of those things really broaden your mind and show you another avenue of how to go. I know that after I started my business, I went to Inspiring Women's Conference and like a friend of mine had told me about it. And even just being there and talking to other people that wanted to be there really changed my perception about my own business and where I was at that point. And it was one of the most important things I did that year. And I almost didn't go because it's not like a traditional what I would do for my job. Normally I would go to a different kind of conference. And I think that is an important message to try those kind of things.
I think so too. And to just see how you feel, because clearly those turning points or those conferences or trainings had a specific impact on, wow, this really makes me feel good. I like this. I'm so surprised. What can I do moving forward to incorporate this into my actual profession or what I'm trained to do, which is really, really cool. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to explore those other areas where it may not make sense right now, but certainly it'll make sense a year from now or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just about the experiences that shape us. And what I didn't mention, it's a good point, Corinne, you brought it up, which is I did plenty of things too, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. It helps you to decide, this isn't my jam. I'm going to stay over in the wellness space and do that because that's what I really like. I do think the other important thing that it gives you is confidence sometimes. Like,
yeah, definitely.
We're not that confident about going outside of our space. With wellness, I was going to have to convince people. My dean is a psychology guy, by the way. And convince a psychologist, basically a clinical health psychologist, that I was the right person for wellness and an environmental toxicologist. But doing the experiences I did, which I'm calling professional development, but maybe they could just be experiences, really give me some more confidence that I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to pursue it. And it gives you more confidence that you can. And then you got to make the ask at some point. And it could have been no. And I would have had to try another avenue, but it wasn't. And the dean's been really supportive. And yeah, I'm glad he has. We're still doing it.
What are the skills that you have, or skills or personality traits that have made you successful in what you're doing, or to weather these changes?
Honestly, I grew up and I was like super shy. I didn't say a word to anybody. I sat in class and I always did fine. And the teacher would always write home to my folks and say, she's fine, but she doesn't say anything. I was really shy. And I think science has helped me find a voice. When I found that voice, I think one of the things that I realized that's important from a skill set is just how to communicate with people. I think that's a skill set that we don't always think is a skill. People are inherently extroverts, they're really good at it. And other people like me were really horrible at it at one point. And I also think just because you're quiet doesn't mean you can't have good people skills. And there's a lot of discussion about this in the past, I don't know, decade or so, particularly related to women, that if you're quiet, you're not a good leader and so forth. And there's plenty of books that have been written now that say quiet people are actually some of the best leaders. So that's interesting and probably a whole nother podcast for you guys.
Yeah.
Can we invite you back?
I think with people skills, and one thing that I think is really important with respect to people skills, and what I mean by that is communicating with them and figuring them out and how to communicate effectively to sometimes get what you think is important across some finish line, or just communication and creating leadership and teams and collaborations. I think there's skill to that. I do think observing people is something that I learned at Elam, which I do all the time, and it is fascinating. So I'm going to spill all the Elam secrets.
I want to take notes real quick. Hold on.
Wish you're just taught this more often, saying graduate programs, which is sort of my space where I provide training, really apply anywhere, any level. But if you go to the same meeting all the time, just pay attention to who sits where and who speaks first. You really learn a ton about people by just watching. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these books that are out now say quiet people are good leaders, because they pay attention. We don't normally do that. We come in a room, we start chatting. We're not really paying attention to people's actions, but it really gives you an idea of what makes people tick and how to maybe approach getting them on a team and getting them to buy into whatever you're asking them to do and that sort of thing. I do think that's a skill that we undervalue and underutilize. I certainly think finding your strengths in something you're passionate about, I think the skills will follow.
No.
One more skill I'll mention is networking with people, I think is super important. It's an important thing that I try to give that opportunity to my students. I'm like, go to a meeting and the research is great, and that's what you're here to do, but you're really here to network and learn from other people and meet other people. And a lot of times that helps you in your career get to the next level of where you want to be. I think these are the skills that aren't talked about as much beyond sort of the skills that are more obvious related to research and leadership.
Is there any skill, something that you think would have been helpful to have before you started, let's say, leadership positions?
Yeah, I think definitely the people skills. It took a while to develop those. I was really quiet, and I'm still quiet in the grand scheme of things compared to other people in leadership, but I'm comfortable being that way.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I meant by follow your passion and skills will follow. Sometimes you have to learn them as you go along. And I had to do that in leadership, and I had to do that as the chair and the dean and for wellness, and even my research that still happened. So I'm doing wastewater now. I have to learn along the way. Going back to the people thing and the network, you get smarter about using your network and your people skills to help you get these projects to move forward, realizing you don't have to be the sole person who's all the expert skills to do something. I think sometimes, especially in science, we think about that. It's my project. I'm going to train that way in grad school.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of things, all of the work I'm describing is all collaborative. It's all big team. Rely on other people who either do the skill for you or teach you the skill, one or the other.
I think because science now has to be larger. We're exploring bigger questions because we figured out some of the things that maybe could be more individualized. And now it's hard to answer anything with one type of expertise. You definitely need more than one perspective. And also you realize that brings a lot of value to the table. So that's what it sounds like you're saying.
I know that you mentioned that things evolved, but did you ever feel like this itch inside of you that it was time to maybe transition to something else or do something else? Or did it just kind of present itself? How do you navigate all of that, figuring out when to do what, or if something doesn't feel right, how do you pivot? Or when do you know when it's time to pivot?
I do think some of it depends on the person because I do get itchy after. I don't know. We'll talk about or something where I'm doing stuff for a while and then I want to do something else. And whether that something else is just another extended layer of what I'm doing or it's something sort of new, like the wellness or the wastewater or some of these other things. Those are bigger pivots and I think they take more thought. I think one thing is it's good to decide whether you're really 100% in or not to pivot. And if you are, like I was with wellness, I think you have to prepare yourself for it may be no, but then I'm going to try a different way and to not completely get derailed by the fact that it's just not an easy yes for something. Because I do feel like every time it's no, along the way, you learn something else, right? You either learn something about people or you learn about the institution or I don't know, whatever it is. And then you rethink and you reshuffle, which is, it's hard to do. And that took me a while. First to get the confidence to do it and then be ready for the no. I've had plenty of things where it's just no, of course, as well. And yeah, so I think part of it is being 100% on board, which I think helps with the bigger pivots. I feel like smaller pivots, maybe you're not 100% on board, but you try and then you let those go by the wayside. I think there's sort of two categories of that, if you will. And then coming at it from the thought process is you're almost reinventing a little piece of yourself every time you do this. Right? It's like, oh, well, I'm going to reinvent myself as a wellness person, or now I'm going to reinvent myself as working with DEIA or something like that, or wastewater-based epidemiology expert, which I'm not claiming, by the way, because I haven't been doing it. And so part of that just also really is about timing as well. It's not just about getting itchy about something and you start thinking about it, but I think timing is key and really assessing the environment and saying, number one, am I ready to take a leap off this diving board? And two, is the timing right for the ask? I think we learned a lot about that at ELAM, which is the strategies when the timing is right. Or maybe it's leaving a job completely.
Yeah.
And going and doing something else. And Corinne, you did that. Yeah. No, you could speak to that
So
better.
interesting. Yeah. This is another question that's still in the same vein, but like, how do you balance all of the different hats that you're wearing, including being a mom and all of that? How do you do that?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something that people may not like, but I don't like to call, I've said this to Corinne before. I don't like work-life balance. I don't like the phrase.
Okay.
I like to replace the phrase with work-life prioritization.
Got it.
And I've come to that because I'm not sure it's ever balanced completely. To me, balanced is you have all your pots and they're all balanced and everything's just honky-dory and
cut off time.
Space. And like, I'm not sure in the type of work I do that exists, especially when you're in the leadership positions where you have hot fires going on and your day gets derailed. I do call it work-life prioritization. And what I mean by that are different things rise to the top on a given day or week or year or whatever time frame you're talking about. And you do those and you focus on those and you do those well. The other things will still be there and then they'll shuffle to the top when you pull them up there and then you'll work on those. It's prioritizing more than balancing, I would say. And then you have to make sure whatever you want to prioritize the most is always in the top tier. And you have to decide how big that tier is. But of course, I have little kids. I have a 14-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. And I had them later. And then also making sure for my wellness, a good support network around me. And of course I do. And I have this wonderful husband who left his career to take care of the kids. He's home. And if that weren't so balanced for me. I'll use the word balance there then, or the support wasn't there. I might be doing this a little bit of a different way. So I think everybody has to figure it out. But I do think it's more about prioritizing than balancing.
I think that's really like a smart way to look at it, actually, because that makes the most sense. Because in life, it's never going to be that cut and dry. You're always going to have just a dumpster fire happening somewhere where suddenly everything that you thought you were going to do, forget it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I thinking about it that way, you give yourself some permission and freedom. I don't have to do all these things by the end of the day because I'm going to be here till 3 a.m, but I'll prioritize some today and prioritize different things tomorrow.
Totally.
I actually would like to chime in on this because I think I did have this famed work-life balance for a little while, and now it's definitely in the work-life prioritization zone. And I've realized that if where my business is heading is where I would like it to head, and if that's what I want, it's going to continue like this. It's not going to slow down. I'm going to have to figure out ways to manage. Of course, one of the things is just making it more efficient or making processes better. But in the end of the day, when you're in charge of people, it changes things. There's always going to be an added level of complexity. So I'm learning this right now, Tara. So it was really good to hear about that because that's exactly what I'm going
much
through.
wisdom.
Yeah, well, it was for COVID too, because that just upheaved everything in the department. Everybody had a different story and a different way that they were dealing with that, both in the workplace and at home. It was complicated. It's a big example of how things get turned on their head and then how you have to like prioritize things because there was no way to, in my case, run a testing lab for 16 hours a day. So, you had to prioritize things. Yeah.
What would you tell maybe a younger version of yourself with regards to all the things that were going to happen to you along the way? I'm trying to get at like imposter syndrome because I think like all of us younger researchers just coming out, doing a postdoc, whatever, you just haven't really totally found your voice yet. You have this imposter syndrome very strongly. What would you say to younger Tara, to those that are just starting out?
One thing I would probably tell myself is to take more chances. It's hard to do that, especially like I was saying, I was quiet and this and that. But even with like my scientific mentors or even before that, family members, whatever it is, friendships, I think people are predictable and unpredictable. But I think that taking chances to reach out, to learn more or get advice or whatever it is, we all are afraid to do that in some ways. And I think particularly science, there's this really fascinating in some way, like power differential between lab PIs and students or chairs, faculty or whatever it is. And people don't feel like they can go and just have conversations. And I think you learn a lot about people. And I feel like a lot of people would be receptive to that, but the opportunities just don't arise. So that is something that I try to do now. I tend to mentor a lot of young women in science and trying to get them to the point where they feel comfortable coming to me or coming to somebody else that's ahead of them in their career. I love talking to younger people about their career. For me, it's something I enjoy. So not everybody would be responsive to that, but I think a lot of people would. And looking back, there were probably a lot of missed opportunities for me because I just was like, oh, I can't go and talk to that person, and I think trying just to think about that differently, some of it becomes culturally ingrained. And I hope that we're changing that in some ways. I think if I had to say one thing to my younger self, it would be take more chances in that capacity. But then I sometimes wonder, would I have gone to a different space than where I am now? And I'm happy where I am now. So I don't know.
As someone that has a communications degree, my ears perked up when you said that people need to learn to communicate better and more often. Yes, that's what I'm always advocating for, especially in the company I work for now, because they're just going through a ton of expansion. So it's like new people all the time, new processes, new software. So you just really need to constantly be in communication. As far as your background and everything you've done, do you have a favorite project or a favorite field that you worked in, or do you just like everything you've done evenly?
Good question. Yeah. Do you play
Ooh.
favorites with your
aside from the
accomplishments?
wellness, because we know the wellness is,
We know
you
the
know,
wellness.
that's
You know
the
you're
that's the
passionate
true
about that.
favorite. But
Yeah.
I really like all of it. But what's special about the wellness is that's the one thing that I created at nothing to something. So that
Yeah.
Okay.
why it was a little bit different for me, but really I like all of it. I mean, I love environmental toxicology. Of course, we hear about all the things we're doing to our environment and
Yeah.
people being exposed to pollutants and things like that. So I feel like I'm doing important work. And it's branched to wastewater-based epidemiology and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's similar stuff. And I still love doing that or whatever version of that I'm doing. And I like doing research because academia is interesting, right? Because it's a space where you can be really creative and you can you can have an idea to go test something and you can pretty much go test it. I mean, within reason. Having those conversations with the students, I have this idea. Well, go figure it out. There's not that many jobs where you actually have that much flexibility to say, I just want to try something today and I'm going to go do it. That's a really cool part of this job in general that I like. And then with the leadership stuff, I think I like it because I feel like I make a difference on people and communities, but it's also gratifying to build things like wellness, other initiatives that I've done in the department, building things and seeing them come to fruition. I really like that aspect of the job as well. And then a piece I haven't really talked about too much is, and Karun mentioned, I sit on several boards. The EPA Science Advisory Board was one I did a term for 1.5 years. And it was just fascinating just to have that opportunity. I was one of 44 people in the nation that was sitting on the highest board for the EPA, that everything came through, all the studies, everything came through that board. And we were giving advice on the science to pretty much the president, the head of EPA that has a direct line to the president. And it was wild too, because we had changes in leadership over the past 6 years that were interesting to see how that changed. So that was more at a kind of policy level, although we were not a policy board. But, I'm going to be doing a panel with the national academies. I'm an affiliate faculty at the Smithsonian in DC. So I get to do all this cool stuff. And I'm just really fortunate to have the opportunity to network with really interesting people. Like somehow my job got me a tour of Annapolis recently.
so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
It's just cool. That's not science, but that's just relationship working and
Yeah.
opportunities that I've somewhat created because of what I do, but fortunate to have as well. So I don't know. It's a long way of saying I like all of it.
Nothing wrong with that.
And then I get to bring some of it home to my kids and stuff too. With the wellness stuff, where we have community projects related to that called Track Trails. So there's these trails out in the communities where we're tracking how many people are using them. And so I get my kids to do it. And so
So
just
cool.
getting them involved is
Yeah.
cool, and feeling proud of your work. And then your kids are proud of
course.
you. And then it's a happy day.
Yeah. That's right.
It's awesome.
That's right.
I feel like a very common theme is follow your passion and
Yeah.
what makes you happy at the end of the day, like what
Yeah.
feels right.
I think
it's-
taking time to think about it. We get in this like go, 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 especially at school, which is really hard. And the big training pieces that we do, it's like sometimes you just got to stop and take a minute and go outside for 5 minutes and give yourself time to think about what it is you're really passionate about. And let that shape what you want to do.
Totally. And
Yeah.
finding the little things that maybe if your job isn't totally 100% awesome, just trying to find those things in it that are, or that where you can make an impact or you can change it. Just, yeah.
Or you're at a job where maybe it's not a huge change, but maybe there's a way to change a little piece of it
Yeah.
that it relates to your passion and it's something you can do and own and, feel really, really good about. So it doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yeah.
It could be small things or a series of small things. And I think those make big differences.
Yeah, because sometimes you can integrate those smaller things in your job, and sometimes you can't integrate it in your job, but then you can integrate it into your life. I think that's something I've
Point.
told people before because, sometimes you get like what you were saying, Terry, you get really in this path, and then this is the only way. Well, it's not the only way. There's a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different ways you can be happy. So I think there's a good message in being open to it. And I actually really liked what you were talking about, observing people or just observe things. I've given people advice where they're not sure about their careers, and I'm like, just talk to people and look what's out there. Because people have reached out to me and I'm happy to talk to them. So it's like reaching out never hurts. If somebody doesn't want to talk to you, it's not going to hurt you, but it's worth getting different people's perspectives on things. So it's just really,
Yeah.
I think that's very
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah, I always think about it as one of those crime shows where they walk in the room and these detectives are trained to like see every detail in the room. Like, it's like
That's awesome.
their brain and they remember things. So just
Wow.
being observant and then I think learned experiences, you change your mind about things, right?
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
I lost my administrative assistant, and I said, okay, I have to hire a new one. Well, I'm going to look for different skills. I'm going to hire a marketing and communications specialist, Heidi. I'll start over. And because I think that's the piece that's harder for people to learn. I mean, I think I could probably learn to do my calendar and stuff like that. So I'd rather train people to do that piece and then have them bring the skills of marketing and communication. And so the position is called a marketing and communication specialist and not administrative assistant position.
That's really smart.
that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
But that was learned, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. I like to conclude these with a little question, a little fun question. Name 3 people, anyone in history, dead, alive, in the present, that you would like to have a glass of Prosecco with. I happen to know that is one of your favorite drinks, so that's why.
Me too.
Everyone loves
Cheers.
Prosecco.
a few minutes to think about it.
know one right off the bat.
All right.
Yeah, I really know 2.
Okay. There.
I think Amelia Earhart.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
so cool.
I like
Yeah.
that one. That's super cool. Yeah.
What I like about her is to talk about someone following their passion.
I
in a time
know. Wow.
where it's difficult for women to do. And I realized she was fairly privileged and all this. So some of the stuff she
Yeah.
did was easier than maybe for other folks. But I think she would just be
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's cool.
And I think there's quotes that she has said that there's a lot to pushing things forward that has to do with just grit. Keep going, keep trying, check the nose. It's okay. And that's kind of how she maneuvered, if you will. And then, of course, I like the flight connection. That's really cool.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, I brought that all the way back to the beginning. So,
Yeah. Nice. You're a
Airplane.
pro.
So she's one person. I think, of course, I have to say Rachel Carson, who wrote Silent Spring. It really was the pioneer for environmental pollutants on ecosystem health. And that had to do with DDT and a lot of other things that we were using that had these off effects on birds and other species. But it really broke open the field of environmental toxicology. Really, it was always kind of there, but she really tilted the slope of the curve on that one and is really the basis of a lot of the work that I do. And so I think her story is really fascinating. I don't know. The last person would be someone probably in ancient Egypt because I'm always like fascinated in history.
Yeah. It's super cool.
Like
yeah.
King
You know,
Tut or
So
something.
King
Yeah.
Tut or something.
Or like Nefertiti.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know how nice of people they might be, but I think it would be really fascinating to just go
Yeah.
way back and sit down and have a glass of wine in another time. I guess those are my 3 people.
No, those are great. I love them. Yeah. I like the ancient Egypt. That's a really good call, especially the other 2. That makes sense.
The last
Yeah.
one doesn't make sense, but I had to throw a wild
No,
card
it
in.
does make sense because it is fascinating.
No one
about
said that either.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
we all have secret nerd favorite things, so it makes sense. We have our like pet, not our main nerdery. There's side.
Like you have a
nerdery.
little
I get it.
classics, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I get it. Yeah. So Tara, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your wisdom, your hard-earned wisdom with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think
thanks
this was
for
really
making
fun.
Yeah, it was fun. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It was easy conversation. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the Business of Doing Science podcast. For more information on our guests and access to career development resources, please click on the link to our website below. And remember, you can also visit the website to learn more about how Bagamian Psi can help you do science.